Welcome to What's Up at Work, the podcast that's all about real talk with the company leaders shaping Northeast Ohio's top workplaces. We're diving into the stories, strategies, and sometimes hilarious moments that come with creating the thriving teams that drive the region's most successful businesses forward. Whether it's a CEO sharing their leadership philosophy or an HR exec spilling their best people-first strategies, we're here to give you insights you can actually use to build a better workplace. Hit play and let's talk about what's really up at work. Welcome back to What's Up at Work, everybody. I'm Sam Clyde Schroeder, Vice President of Sales and Marketing at ERC, and today we're here to talk about something that's very close to my heart, and I imagine yours too, happiness at work, or as our guest likes to say, fulfillment at work, which is something even more powerful. Joining us today is someone who knows a thing or two about creating an environment where people actually want to show up every day. The CEO of Embrace Pet Insurance, Brian Macias. Under Brian's leadership, Embrace has grown 300% in the last 4 years, and you now insure over 500,000 pets across the U.S.
That's right.
But Brian's leadership, it goes way beyond just the numbers. So he's here today to share his insights about how leaders can create an environment where employees thrive personally and professionally. From the magic of human connection to the balance of love and work, we're going all in. Ready?
I'm ready.
Let's get started.
Let's do this.
All right. All right, Brian, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here. So let's kick things off with a little background about you. What has the journey been for you? Like, how did you land in the CEO role at Embrace, and what has that been like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, first, Sam, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
It's a real honor to be here, and I'm excited to talk to you about all the cool things that we're doing in Embrace and just have a great conversation with you in general about what does it mean to find fulfillment and happiness at work. And I don't know that it's something that we hit every day, but it's something that we certainly strive for, and it's an intention that we've set at Embrace. And so I'm always interested in talking about it and gleaning new things about it.
Yeah, we're excited.
Yeah. So for me, I think, my journey has been an interesting one. I mean, I think it's been mostly opportunistic. I think one of the things I've learned, and if I think about advice that I give others, it's that you don't really know what you're good at, and you really have no idea what's available to you, on this planet of 7 billion plus people and, all kinds of companies and roles and ideas, and there's entrepreneurship and there's nonprofits, and within all of those entities and for-profit companies, there's all kinds of roles that you've never heard of, probably people that you've never met. I mean, there's just so much out there. And so I think if I look back, I think I said yes a lot to things. And I very early on recognized that there was nothing that I think I was particularly built for. I was not an engineer. I was not a doctor. I was just a curious guy who worked hard, really enjoyed relationships and finding mentors and learning from them, and just liked to do new things and new creative things and engaging in interesting conversations and just learning about stuff. And so I think my career, when I look back on it, it really was filled with all of those things. It was really just leaning into curiosity, to saying yes and trying new things, and finding mentors along the way who could give me good advice. And that really kind of led me to this place.
That's super interesting. And if we're talking about, your passion for creating fulfillment in the workplace and that culture, why is that such a priority for you, given, kind of the background you've just presented to us?
Yeah. Well, I think part of it comes down to being 47. I'm turning 47 this month.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. And I think you start to reflect a little bit, and you start to try to really define who you are and what your values are, and try to live more intentionally, and you start to think about what's important more. I think for a lot of people, it might lead them to, some philosophical ideas, maybe a little reading of Marcus Aurelius or others. And, you start to think about, okay, well, how do I want to intentionally think about my life? What's important in life? And you really come down to whether it's pet insurance or widgets or ERC or just these things that we do, they're important to some extent, but at the end of the day, you spend, if you're lucky, 80 plus years on this planet. It's a relatively small amount of time. What we do during that time is both incredibly consequential and inconsequential, right? Mm-hmm. And so it really becomes, well, what's important? And you realize, well, Freud said this, and it really resonated with me, is that the cornerstones of our humanness are to love and work. And so that really resonated with me. And we spend a lot of time at what we call work. And so I think for me, it's just how do I find fulfillment and how do I help others find fulfillment and happiness and really lean into the things that make us human. And that really has had a big impact about how I think about how I show up on a daily basis and how I show up for others.
Mm-hmm. And so the mission and values at Embrace, how have you applied that philosophy of yours to what's going on at work?
Yeah, well, Embrace has a very strong culture and did before I showed up. Our founder, Laura Bennett, she started the company roughly 18 years ago, and she started it with 6 core values that have persisted through today.
What are those?
I knew you'd put me on the spot to name all 6 of them. But innovation is one of them, client fixation, openness and honesty, giving back to the community. These are included, and they're things that we focus on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And I'm of the belief that if you're a company, most of the time you're going to identify core values that are generally accepted as good things and virtuous things, right? Like no companies say like, hey, our core values are greed and discrimination and these other things. I mean, that's not a thing. But the difference is do you actually exhibit them, exemplify them when times are hard? It's easy to say you're something when it's easy, when the wind is at your back. It's a lot harder when the wind is blowing at your face. And I think that at Embrace, we make sure to keep those core values front and center. We start all of our monthly All Paws meetings with those core values in the center of a slide.
All Paws meetings.
All Paws, yeah.
Oh, I love that.
That's right. That's all 345 Embracers that come on once a month, and we talk about the business, things that are happening, our results, but mainly we give a lot of props and we celebrate our team members. Mm-hmm. And so, but we start with the core values and we start with what our mission is and what we're trying to do at the company. And we want to get back to, it's not about what we do, it's why, right? What is the purpose of what we're doing here? And so I think that's really big for us is that for us, it's about purpose and profits and people, and so you have to have all 3. If you have a business that's based just on profits, well, that's an empty proposition, right?
Right.
But if you have all purpose and no profits, well, that's just unsustainable.
Right.
So,
you're going under.
That's right. So at Embrace, it's really, we set the intention that we focus on both. We want to make sure that we run a really good business with people who are really bought into it, who are capable and excited and motivated by that, but also are more importantly motivated by what we're doing for pets and pet parents and for each other and for the community at large. And so these are intentional focuses we set.
Wow. And I mean, the common thread that you're kind of talking about here is, well, I would have called it happiness, but when we were talking before, you were like, no, fulfillment.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the difference between happiness and fulfillment and why fulfillment is more meaningful to you?
Yeah, for sure. And listen, some of it is just nuance, right, in terms of the words that we're using. I mean, they're somewhat synonymous. I think happiness is a difficult concept because I think often people will confuse happiness with pleasure or with fun and those kinds of things. And those things are, an emotion that you might have at any given time. Like you and I are having a lot of fun right now, right? And there are things you might do that are pleasurable, right? And so sometimes people who are actually in search of happiness, which is a state of being. Happiness is a state, right? And we should aspire to that. And I think fulfillment is a big piece of that. But I think people make the mistake of pursuing pleasures and pursuing fun. And really what you're doing is you're just getting giant doses of dopamine when you're doing that, and you just need more and more dopamine, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas happiness is really about creating, a life and a lifestyle that's centered around values that you can strive to live up to, right? And doing that on a consistent basis. And a lot of the reason why people shy away from that is it's work. It's a lot of work, right? And a lot of it has to do with commitment and consistency. And so I think that that's really an important differentiation that people need to understand and really wrap their brains around. So, listen, at Embrace, we have plenty of fun and we do plenty of cool things that create a lot of dopamine, right? Mm-hmm. And I think all of us are in search of dopamine and oxytocin and serotonin. I mean, all the feel-good drugs that go on and the chemicals in your head. But I think what we really want to create is something sustainable in a way of being and a commitment and a consistency that people can sign up for and really dedicate themselves to that would create, kind of that going back to Freud's definition of our humanness is to love and to work. And the love part is just human relationships. Mm-hmm. We are social animals. We require in-person, face-to-face, social, emotional connections, right? And that is an important, maybe the most important part of being a human being is having that. And so we focus on that, and we want to create that environment for people. And then on the work side of things, we want to connect the work we do to the impact that it has on the pets and the pet parents, our communities, the 345 people who count on us to pay their mortgage, drive their car, go on a couple of vacations a year, put their kids to college. Like, we want to help people connect those dots so that they realize what they do is important.
Yeah. Wow. So happiness is more of a flash, but what you're talking about with fulfillment, I mean, it's a state of being. And can we, just to put this in like an actionable kind of context, what are some ways that you've kind of worked this concept of fulfillment into your day-to-day at Embrace?
Yeah, it's really simple stuff. I talk about this all the time, and it's not sexy, Sam. And I think sometimes, people, I'm a big college football fan. I'm a University of Michigan graduate. We
had a rough game against you the other day.
Yeah, well, it was a rough, I think both teams had a rough game. Let's just be real about it.
It wasn't great.
Either team could have come out, victorious on that game.
Right,
it was a rough game, but it lived up to the hype of the game. And when I look at Sherrone Moore, who is the current head coach of the University of Michigan, and Jim Harbaugh before that, and even if I think about professional football and I think about Coach Campbell of the Lions, or any great coach, when I was listening to Sherrone Moore talk in his post-game presser, it was clear he just really, sometimes I say the kids, but they're not kids. These are grown men for the most part. But he acknowledges them by name, and you can just see in his face, he genuinely likes them. Like he'll say something like, great person, great teammate, right? And he just talks about them as human beings. And when I see coaches do that, and when I think about the leaders that I really respected and try to model, I think first and foremost, they just genuinely enjoy being around other people. They're curious about other people. They want to engage with them. They want to help them. And I think that that's just the first rule. And so, I think the other piece to this is none of them are, if I go back to Coach Moore, I go back to Coach Harbaugh, or even Coach Campbell of the Lions, these guys run traditional offenses, right? They're not running a spread or West Coast, or they're not innovators of the game. Like they're running pro set offenses, often with two tight ends in there, or even sometimes a fullback. I mean, these are old schemes. They're not doing anything crazy or harebrained. They just find a way to connect with their team, to get the right people on board, get them in the right seats, to make them feel part of something bigger than themselves, build a culture around execution. And just in general, we were talking about Gen Alpha words earlier, they just get people hype.
They get people hype.
And so when I think about, what do I want to be and how do I want to lead teams, I just think it's those basic fundamentals, is that, I don't think that there's anything we're doing at Embrace Pet Insurance that is uniquely innovative from a product or a process perspective. It's insurance. Insurance is inherently boring, and it should be. We deal with risk. We help people hedge risk. That should be a fairly conservative business. But I think what we do well, and what we really set an intention around doing well, is building great relationships and really focusing on genuinely showing people that we are authentic, that we care. And really, I'm rambling a little bit now, but there's a great saying I learned from a mentor of mine. His name is Stephen Luigi Piazzi. He passed away a few years ago. And he said, people care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so I think every leader who, at least in my mind, who I aspire to be like, understands that, and they start with the basics of building relationships, building trust, and that is the foundation that leads to everything else. Then you can have difficult conversations, then you can vet ideas and shoot each other's ideas down, build each other's ideas up. You can then focus on accountability and execution and all those other things. But if you're not focused on, first and foremost, building that foundation of relationship and trust and, like and confidence in one another, and making people feel important, appreciated, liked, and valued, you're missing the mark.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to shout myself out here because I followed every one of those football references. My dad was like, wanted a bunch of professional athlete kids. And although we did super well, we never quite lived up to the expectation, but darn it, we we knew our stuff. So that was, I mean, I love all of those analogies and just making it more relatable. But we also, I mean, we talked about your numbers earlier, and your numbers have been crazy over the last 4 years. How do you connect these kind of more touchy-feely type of, beliefs and values, and how does that drive your bottom line?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think at the end of the day, people will run through walls for other people, and I think when you create an environment where you have team members who love working together, when they have leaders that they want to be successful for, and when they have a purpose that they're driving behind, you will get a lot of effort, you will get a lot of execution. And, the kinds of people we want, we're really looking for that. We're looking for passion and effort and execution. I think that anyone can be taught anything, right? I'm not a big believer in I want to go find somebody with a bunch of experience. Yeah. I want to go find somebody who has a history of grit, of determination and commitment and consistency. And those are people we want to bring on board. And the cool thing about our business, passion being one of our core values, is that we deal with pets. And so you and I had a great conversation about Iggy and Joe. You want to get to know somebody, ask them about their pet. People are passionate about their pets.
I could talk about my dog all day.
We can.
Right.
And so, not everybody at Embrace, and this is not a prerequisite to work at Embrace, but many Embracers are pet parents. And so inherently they have a passion and a buy-in toward doing good work for pets and helping to increase the health and lifestyle and longevity of pets, which ultimately increases, the lifestyle of pet parents. And so it's very easy to get on board with what we do at Embrace. And we help pet parents to not have to choose between their personal finances and the health of their dog. Right. And so I think we're blessed to have a purpose that it's easy to be passionate about.
Yeah, it's similar to what you were saying before. There's no secret sauce. It's that, the effort and all of that's, the success follows the effort and the passion and that fulfillment that you're creating at the organization.
That's right. Well, and even more so, that was a really smart thing to say, Sam, that there's no secret sauce. It's actually 1,001 little things, and so you can't really ascribe success to any single one of those things. It's really just, I learned this a long time ago from a mentor, Rod Hairston, who was very instrumental at Quicken Loans, now Rocket Mortgage. Mm-hmm. And he talks about the laws of focus. And the laws of focus are this: what you focus on, you find; what you focus on grows; what you focus on seems real; and what you focus on, you become. And this really, for me, and I share this with the team all the time, is that especially just the first part, what you focus on, you find. And so we spend a lot of time saying that and doing that and ensuring that we're keeping our mindset focused on the right things. We have the right things in front of us. And that has really been a big difference. And then listen, at the end of the day, if someone who's had success in their life won't ascribe some of it to really good fortune, then they're a liar. We've had a lot of really good fortune. Yeah. Throughout the pandemic. There were, 15 million dogs adopted.
Right.
We were well positioned for that at the time. Compared to a lot of our competitors, we were very digitally focused at the time, whereas a lot of our competitors distributed through veterinarian clinics and shelters and other things. Well, come COVID, veterinary clinics and shelters and these places got locked down. People were in their houses. These were not places that you were going to distribute a lot of pet insurance. But if you were built digitally like we were, and we were already doing a lot of organic search and paid search, we had digital partners. We have lovely relationships that we're so fortunate to have with USAA and Geico and Allstate, and those were digitally native relationships. And so when this adoption boom and this puppy boom happened, I'll never forget it. I mean, it was really in May of 2020. In March of 2020, our business tanked. In April of 2020, it was still really bad, but a little bit better. And then all of a sudden, in May of 2020, nothing we did proactively, our new business went up 100% overnight.
We all got lonely and got dogs.
That's right. And so, I like to say, like, we might not have created that demand. We didn't create the wave, but we certainly had to surf it. And the team really galvanized around it and did very well. We went from like 80 team members to now we're at 345. We hired a ton during the pandemic. We did it effectively. We maintained our culture at that time. Those things were very difficult, but growing the business, listen, life is a lot of right time at the right place. Yeah. And we were there.
Yeah. And it's funny that you mentioned COVID because you have like a really unique perspective on working from home. It's such a hot topic and everyone seems to have an opinion about whether it's a dream come true or a nightmare. But you bring a really fresh perspective. So your philosophy on the great in-office versus remote debate is that it should be about the person versus being about the function of the role or, the productivity, monitoring, babysitting, that kind of thing. It's what works for the person. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I think in general, I have an unpopular opinion. I'm not going to win any populist movements. If I post this on LinkedIn, it's not going to get...
I think it's very progressive.
Yeah, well, thank you. But this is, I think there's a lot of pandering right now to people. And all you have to say is work from home is the right answer for everybody. And you'll get 5,000 likes on LinkedIn, right? Because it's a very populist opinion. And I get it. It's easy. People like things they're easy.
Sometimes it's easy. Well, sometimes it's not.
But the things that are easy are very overt. I don't have to necessarily get up, get dressed, get showered, put on clothes, get in my car, fight traffic, deal with the kids in the morning, get them on the bus. I mean, it's hard. I mean, let's be upfront about that. It's hard to get up, get kids to school, get yourself to work, and to go to a physical office. It creates a higher level of effort, and there's just more that goes on to having to do it. You're having to sacrifice some other things. So let's just start there. I acknowledge that. I know it. I live it. I have 2 kids, a 16-year-old, a 12-year-old. I have a wife. It is harder for me from just a perfunctory perspective to get up, get those kids to school, get a workout in, do all the things, get in the car and get to the office. That's true. But I think at the end of the day, the debate has largely started to center around what's more productive. And I think this is where we're missing the mark because I think there's a lot of ways to get productivity on both sides of the fence, and there's a lot of valid arguments. I think if you say, well, what jobs are more productive? Well, certainly, a lot of frontline jobs are far more productive and in a lot of ways are very good for team members financially. They don't have to pay for gas. They don't have to, if their children are older, they don't have to find childcare. If their children are younger, you still have to have childcare. So that can't be argued with, right? If you're a customer service person and, you're really kind of measuring how many calls you take and resolution and all these kinds of things, from home is fine. But that's not the right question. The right question isn't about how productive or not productive we can be. It's what's right for that individual and not what's easy. It's what's right for them in the long term and for their mental health and for their socialization and just getting out in the world and being a human being who interacts with other people. And right now there's a lot of isolation. There's a lot of loneliness. And I think this is where, I think I ruffle little feathers. The majority of people have not examined their lives, right? So the Stoics would say most live an unexamined life, meaning that you don't really know yourself. You don't really know what you like, dislike, what makes you tick. You don't really keep a journal long enough to know what things make you happy or fulfilled or bring happiness or pleasure. Most people don't do that. So
you're not noticing what you know. It's you're just doing and enjoying, but not taking inventory.
Yeah, you're just a rudderless ship in most cases. Yeah. Most of us very opportunistic, just leaning into the next thing or dealing with the next urgent thing that we have to deal with. And my argument would be that without the exoskeleton of the office is that people then are going to fall into a couple or a few different buckets. 2 of them being extreme. One is you might be somebody who just doesn't stop working. So you work from home and you don't set up boundaries. So you get up and the first thing you do is you flip open that laptop with your cup of coffee and then you don't really have a start and stop and you end up working, 12, 14 hours a day, 16 hours a day, whatever, right? You're overworking because you don't set boundaries. That's not good. That's not a balanced life. That's not good for you. That's not good for anybody, right? Maybe good for the company, but really, at the end of the day, it's proven that at some point you actually become less effective the longer you work,
It's
right?
not fulfilling.
Yeah. Well, and you become less productive.
Yeah.
So even from a company perspective,
Yeah.
might think like, oh, CEOs want people working 16 hours a day. It's like, no, actually the data shows that like people become less productive and less efficient and, less accurate the longer they work. So the other extreme would be folks who, and I think this is more common and a lot of people just don't want to own up to this, is that like you just fall into bad habits and a lot of them happen on the thing that's in my pocket that's buzzing all the time and that has social media on it and has all this stuff and they death scroll, right? They're just on Instagram scrolling and scrolling. They're on TikTok scrolling and scrolling. They're on Facebook. And man, especially in, an election cycle, right? They're just getting angry and they're, talking politics or whatever. Or they're just sucked into things, FOMO, looking at other people's lives. Like, we know that these devices are bad for us. Like, we know it now. The social media companies know it. Their whole investment is time on screen. That's their whole goal, is to keep you scrolling, right? That's not good for you, right? That's not good for you. This is good for you.
Right.
Engaging with another human being, having a conversation, laughing, God forbid, hugging somebody, right? Going out, having a drink, getting a workout in, going for a walk outside in nature. You cannot argue with me. These things are better for you than scrolling on your damn phone. And so my question to people would not be, where are you more productive or what's better for management versus people who are in the cubes or any of these other things. My question for people would be, take a good, honest, hard look at yourself and ask yourself what's better for you and what's better for your fulfillment and your mental state and your longevity as a father, a mother, a partner, a son, a daughter, whatever. Like, what makes you better in those roles? And I would say, unequivocally, a couple days in the office with other human beings, growing, having social interaction, having friends, that is good for you. And that is good for people. And what's good for people ends up being good for the team and the organization. And so I very much am on the side of, I think if you ask yourself what's good for me as a human being, most times people will come to a place of, I need some interaction with other human beings.
So
real.
Yeah. And I mean, I completely agree with that. And we're moving back to a hybrid model now for the first time since pre-COVID. So this has been a huge thing that we've been talking about. And I think that even just for us, ERC as a company that's about to start doing this, you've really kind of nailed down an efficient and effective hybrid model. What tangible advice would you give leaders who maybe aren't there yet and they're trying to figure out, do we go back in office? How do I, make sure people are working at home? Like, what do you tell other leaders when they're approaching this conversation?
Yeah, you're never going to please everybody. That's the answer, right? And that's the number one thing as a leader that you need to accept and get over. And it's a hard place. Leadership can be lonely because of that sometimes. The only way to not ruffle feathers is to not do anything. And eventually, if you're inactive, you'll ruffle feathers that way too. So, how do you know you're doing something? You're pissing some people off.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the answer. And it has to be the culture that you envision and that's best for the team and the organization. And at the end of the day, to be part of something, human beings need to be part of something. They need to be part of social groups. They need to be part of romantic relationships. They need to be part of churches. They need to be part of bowling leagues. Like, human beings, just like birds flock and fish school, human beings tribe, and human beings need to tribe together. And when you do that, when you become part of something, individually you give some things up. That's part of being part of a group. That's part of being part of a marriage. It's part of working at a company, right? Is that like you give some personal freedoms up and some pieces of yourself up to be part of something that is more inclusive of others. It's true of the United States of America, right? Like, you can't have absolute personal freedom as the mantra if we are actually going to be a country of a collective people. You give some things up, right? And so that's what I would tell leaders, is that it's, on the whole, on an adjusted risk basis, it's better for you to have your people see each other a couple days a week, if possible. It just is. It's better for the organization. It's better for the people. Will there be some pain involved in that? Will some people leave when you make that decision? The answer is yes.
Probably, yeah.
They will.
Yeah.
Right? And that's fine, because if they're that married to it and that's what's important to them, then support them. Help them make that move. Go find the right group for them or the right full-time remote job. But you can't please everybody all the time, and you need to really focus on what's right for the collective.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and that's where our CEO has landed as well. And I think it's the right move. So if we bring this to life a little bit, can you share a story from Embrace, like an example of an employee's journey that kind of illustrates fulfillment from, everything we've been talking about, the hybrid model, all of your philosophies and core values at Embrace? Like, who is one employee that you can kind of talk about where you've really seen this work for them?
Yeah, Sam, there's actually quite a few, and I feel so blessed to be meeting with people daily and talk about these things with them. And, specifically on the senior leadership team, there's multiple stories like that. Chris Hagesfeld has been with the company nearly 17 years. I think he was employee number 4 or something like that. Rachel Hinder has been with the company 10 years. Sarah Raddick has been with the company, I think, 14 years. I think Melissa Ng has been with the company now over 10 years. Eric Wainscott, 9 or 10 years.
Wow.
And so the longevity of the people just says a lot, and they've been through multiple sales of the company, they've been through multiple positions, and they will echo a lot of the same things that I'm saying, right? And that they just find such fulfillment in the relationships and the work that we do and the growth that they get from it. They all have stories like this. But I did bring some things here. So I always say, forget about what I say or what I think, although I talk quite a bit about it. So forget the first 40 minutes of everything we just talked about. But what I always say, and I say this about our clients too, so when we have our all Paws meetings, we have a section where we read client testimonials, the most recent ones that they either post on Trustpilot or Google or whatever. And I always say, guys, forget about who I say we are. Let's listen to what our clients are saying. And so I think in this case, because we're talking about team members, forget about what I say, Sam. This is from our most recent engagement survey that we did back in September. There were 266 responses. I just printed out, a few of the free-form responses in the comments. I thought I'd just share a couple.
Yeah,
okay?
and hang on, for leaders out there who don't know what an engagement survey is, what is it and why is it important?
Oh, they're so important. So an engagement survey is something that I would recommend you engage an outside firm to do with you because they have expertise in this.
Maybe like ERC?
Maybe like ERC. Maybe you should participate in North Coast 99 if you're here in Cleveland. And by the way, just like I tell our team, not for the award. This is not why we do this.
Yes.
We do it because it facilitates a platform that we can garner all of the observations and thoughts and feelings of our team, and then we can act on that on behalf of the team. And so our goal when we do an engagement survey, and anyone here will tell you it, I tell the team this every time, my goal is 100% participation. I want you to be honest. I want you to talk about all the warts, talk about what's on your mind. The only thing I'm asking from you is participate. And we drive that level of participation at the leadership level. And I'm when we have that door open for the survey, I'm banging on the leadership team that hey, we can't see who's responded, but we can see how many team members. Right. So it's hey, David in marketing, only 30% of your team has responded and there's 3 days left. I need you at 100%, right? And this is, we make sure that we're getting out there and bugging people because we want to hear from them.
Right.
And we want to get the full breadth of comments because typically when you open a survey, you're going to get your loudest voices if you don't encourage all the voices.
Your raving fans and your biggest critics.
That's right.
It's getting that the middle.
That's right. Yeah, and so that's why it's important to us. So North Coast 99, we've been honored to win that, I think, 11 times now.
Yes.
And listen, that never leads, that follows. What's important to us is the actual surveying process and the feedback that we get from it. Top workplaces is something that we do, and great places to work is also. So we do 3 main ones every single year. And again, it's about getting that information and creating a feedback loop, and then most importantly, coming back to the team and sharing with them what we gleaned, what they said, and then addressing some of the concerns. Right. But my favorite part is not the canonized pieces where it's my manager cares about me, disagree, agree, blah, blah, blah.
That's not helpful.
Those are fine. They are to a certain extent, but I love going right to the raw comments.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because it's okay, here's the real stuff.
Yeah.
And so I just thought I'd share a few of these with you because, this is how we know is the message sent being the message received, basically. Yeah. From day one, I felt very comfortable and appreciated. This made me feel confident in my decision to work with Embrace, and I'm eager to continue to learn and grow here. Management takes the time to do what they can to help everyone feel included as a team, whether or not they are local. Benefits offered here are better than many other companies. People come first in all aspects of the business. It's just one line. People come first in all aspects of the business. And so it's really nice to get this feedback.
Yeah.
The culture itself is great. Everyone sincerely likes each other and is interested in each other's lives.
Wow.
Right? No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. The people who work at Embrace are its greatest strength. The appreciation for everyone's contribution to the success of our company is amazing. I have never worked around friendlier, more diverse group of people. The people. I truly enjoy everyone I work with. The culture and the work environment is so special here that it even manages to spill over to us that work 100% remote. The people are the best. All in periods, are the best.
Wow.
So it's great. A couple more. The culture for sure. It's nice to have a job where you can enjoy coming to work and get to do what you love while also loving the people you work with. I like this one. My direct manager is particularly great. Someone I would happily work for the rest of my career.
Wow.
In our last survey, 94% of Embracers said, my manager cares about me and my concerns. And again, Sam, this is intentional because this isn't stuff that I come on a podcast and say to you. This is what it's like to work with me. Like,
right.
This is you would get sick of it.
Everything that you've been talking about, your employees are feeling it. And for the record, engagement surveys are anonymous. So,
yeah, that's right.
No one was being incentivized to say any of this stuff. They could have said whatever they wanted.
That's right.
And they chose to say these things.
Yeah, and by the way, listen, it's not all, rainbows and sunshine too. I mean, certainly there are things that we need to improve upon. And I think if you're going to have an overt culture, if it is going to be special and unique, then special and unique and exclusive means it ain't for everybody, right? So there are a lot of people that would come to Embrace and really not like it, right? And in fact, those people are ejected like a virus. And not by us.
No,
they self-select.
Yeah,
they self-select out all the time. And we monitor those numbers and review them monthly with actually our BI team. Like we care so much about attrition and why people are leaving that we look at that monthly and we look at the reasons. And the majority of our turnover is nearly all voluntary. And most of it is within the first 90 days. And I think that's important too because if it's not working, we want to part ways as quickly as possible and as amicably as possible, right? And just say it's not working. This isn't the right fit. And so that was intentional as well. And so I don't want to make it seem like anybody and everybody could come to Embrace and they're going to have this wonderful experience. We are a very unique culture, and therefore there are probably more people who wouldn't fit it than there are people who do. And I think that just goes back to being like a college football team, right? Like there's probably a lot of people who can play football, but there's only so many that can play at Ohio State or can play at Michigan or can play at Alabama. There's only a select few that make that level, right? And that's what we're trying to build here. But just a couple more. I love these because they feel so good. And then I'll stop, I promise.
No.
It just is the whole environment is great. I genuinely feel like I get to build awesome things with awesome people. Everyone generally gets along and is focused on the end goal. Great being somewhere, it's great being somewhere where everyone respects and enjoys working together. And then the last thing I'll say, this one is just in all caps. It says, they care about you. That's the last one that's highlighted right there. And so
verified.
Everybody. I didn't type these.
They care about you.
Thank you for letting me indulge in that too. I mean, it just feels so good.
Yeah, and I mean, this is what engagement surveys reveal, and we want everyone to have that same kind of participation level because yours was crazy, but also, I mean, those are the things that tell you what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. And I'm so glad that you pay so much attention to what your employees have to say. And speaking of employees having something to say, now it's your turn. We're going to play a little game called HR Hot Seat.
Oh, boy.
For those who don't know, these are quick, rapid-fire questions where you give your best answer in 3 sentences or less.
Oh, boy.
All right, ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's go. What's the weirdest work-from-home outfit you've worn on a video call?
A towel and a shower cap.
No way. Wow. Okay, what's one piece of business jargon you wish you could ban forever?
Acronyms. In general, just all acronyms.
Yeah.
They exclude people, they alienate people. It's hard for people to catch on. I don't like them, but certainly, there's always the circle the wagons and these kinds of things.
Yes,
yeah.
Right. Circle the wagons. Yeah, I mean, there are so many. Building the plane while flying it is my least favorite. I'm like, Oh, God, I get what you're saying, but the business jargon.
I'm guilty of that one. That one I'm guilty of.
I've said it like 3 times today, and I hate myself every single time. I'm like, oh, my God, Sam, you're so corporate. What's the funniest thing that's happened on a Bring Your Pet to Work day?
Oh, listen, I think it's funny, and with enough time, I think maybe the person who is on the receiving end of this will think it's funny.
Right,
She
right.
doesn't right now, though.
Too soon.
This is more than 3 words, but this was recently. It was a couple weeks ago. There was a giant dog, this Mastiff. His leash was tied to a table, and something happened, and it startled him, and he jumped and went to run and took down 2 or 3 like 50-inch monitors.
Oh my God.
Flipped a table. And Sam, I'm not even to the best part yet, expressed his anal glands all over our head of claims. And this was on Halloween, our Halloween party.
Halloween.
She had put together
in
this whole
costume?
Ghostbusters outfit that was incredible.
Oh, my God.
She was not happy and still isn't, because it was just October 31st. It wasn't that long ago.
It is too soon.
I keep assuring her, I'm like, someday.
This is going to be really funny.
This is a banger, right? I mean, this story is a banger. I mean, someday this is going to be really funny, but like, this is the stuff that like, and we've got a lot of stories like this. I mean, but that one is the most recent and like unbelievable. The whole place smelled like, rotten fish from the anal gland expression.
Your poor Ghostbuster. Oh my God. All right, that's awesome. That's exactly what I was looking for. All right, if Embrace had a mascot besides pets, what would it be?
Besides pets?
Yeah, not a pet.
Oh my gosh. Well, I will say that our head of ops, Chris Haggisfeld, he's been at the company, like I said, almost 17 years. He has a dog costume, like a mascot or
Oh my God, does he put it on?
furry, if you will.
Yes. Oh, yes, I know what a furry is. That's some youth language I'm familiar with.
Stick to mascot, maybe. It's way too small for him. He looks ridiculous in it. But I, early on, like 5 years ago, said, Chris, we should be using this. Like, literally, we should use this in videos. It's funny. You look ridiculous in it. Like, I think there's something here, and I just haven't been able to convince him. But anyways, it would be Chris in that costume.
Yeah, it's Chris in that costume, or your mascot is a furry. One of the two, but that's pretty funny.
We're very diverse at Embrace, and we embrace everybody.
Everybody.
They tell us so. They say.
Yeah, the
you can be
employees
who
say
you
so.
want to be at
wear
Embrace.
that dog costume to work.
Yes.
Absolutely.
No judgment.
No judgment at all. And all right, so you've got the most adorable pup named JoJo, and let's face it, working from home means our dogs see and hear everything. They're basically coworkers. I always say Iggy is the laziest coworker I've ever had. So if JoJo could give you a performance review, what do you think her feedback would be?
Oh, gosh. I mean, one is she would say I don't play with her enough.
Yeah.
She would say that I don't scratch her belly enough.
Belly rubs, man.
And I think what would trump all is I don't feed her enough. So she's a lab. She's basically a walking stomach. And literally, like, has to be protected from eating herself to death because she just would. So I think she would want to eat more, she would want to play more, and she'd want more belly scratches for sure. And she would say I'm deficient in all of those.
Deficient in all of those
I think I'm wonderful. There would be a very much a mismatch there.
Yeah.
My self-evaluation would say I'm great at scratching your belly. I'm great at playing with you, and I'm great at feeding you. And she would say, I don't agree.
Yeah, JoJo says does not meet expectations.
That's right.
Right, needs improvement.
I'd be on a pip.
Oh, my God. You'd be on a pip. I love that. All right, Brian, this has been such an inspiring conversation. But before we wrap up, I want to ask, what advice would you give to leaders who want to bring fulfillment to their teams?
Yeah, listen, just be genuine. Just be curious and interested about other people. It's really just that. Go build relationships like you would with anybody. Just get to know people. And I think that's what builds trust is that, when if you're a doctor and you have good bedside manner, it's the same thing as being a good leader. It's just that you will build that trust. That trust builds in triads. Build it with your team first, then have that just build down. But also just get in the business, be accessible, talk to your frontline people, talk to clients, right? Like all of these things are really important and people see you doing it, and that builds a lot of faith in your ability to lead and people's desire for you to lead them. And so I think that's important. Leaders know the way, go the way, show the way. And so I think that's really important.
I like that. You can't be locked in a tower. I mean, and you need to hear what's going on in order to do something about it.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add to that too is that, like, listen, people's default mode for you is paranoia when you're a leader.
True.
Whether you like it or not,
Yeah.
right? Like whether you're the most lovely human being, you're the leader. And whether you realize it, you're walking around with a stick. You just are, right?
Yeah.
And so people's default mode is paranoia. And if the only interactions they ever have with you are work-focused, then they're going to be conditioned to just fear and not want to have those interactions with you. And I think this is why face-to-face is important, right? And people make management by walking around, right? Like people, the populist loves to make fun of that right now.
Yeah.
Well, that's real. Like the ability to just walk around and build real relationships with somebody so that you become somebody that they look forward to engaging with, that they really enjoy, and it's not always about work, is what enables you to have the tough work conversations and the great brainstorms and to be collaborative and creative with people. And so, listen, it doesn't mean you can't do it remotely. You can be authentic and accessible, but it's a lot harder and you're going to have to put a lot more proactive effort into it. But man, I just keep coming back to just be a person who's genuinely easy to get along with and authentic and fun and funny and caring and, be the person you want somebody else to be.
Yeah, it builds the buy-in. And like you said earlier, that's what's driving the bottom line for you guys at the end of the day. And it's working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the last thing on this, I know you probably want to go faster than I'm going on it.
No.
You've got to, talking about the jargon you want to get rid of, you got to put your own mask on first, right? There's nobody filling your cup up. And so, you have to be internally motivated. And most of us don't wake up positive and feeling awesome every single day, right? Like, so you've got to do the things, listen to the podcast, read the book, get your daily workout in, go for walks, find love and fulfillment in your life, get hobbies that create flow, make sure that you're getting vacation and time, because your job is to have a standard and you should give it to everyone for free. And your standard is high, and your standard is positivity and collaboration and creativity and being constructive. And for most people, you don't wake up that way. And so you have to focus on filling your cup up every day so that you can set that standard and give it to everybody. And so that you've got to take care of yourself.
Yeah. I mean, that is so true. And I mean, I think that that's a good tie-in to, I think my last question for you is, if you had to use 3 words to put on a plaque that describe what your legacy is going to be at Embrace, what are those 3 words?
That's a hard-hitting
I know.
question.
I threw you a curveball.
Yeah, the 3 words, being concise is not my strength.
No, I'm a talker, man. I get it.
Yeah, I'm going to break your rule a little bit, but I always think about why I'm doing this. And if it goes right, I will die a long time before my girls do and before my wife does. And what I want to have happen for them, without getting emotional, is I would love for people to say, your dad helped me. Like, whatever it is, helped them grow, helped them with the situation. And I think the other piece is just that I was kind and compassionate, and I think those are probably the things. So if I have to distill it now, helpful, kind, compassionate.
Wow. I mean, that's incredibly powerful. And I think that, your family and JoJo, and I mean, that bleeds through to your employees, and I'm certain that it bleeds through to your family too. That's incredible. That's all for today's episode of What's Up at Work, and huge thanks to Brian Macias for joining us and sharing his wisdom and insights. So until next time, stay fulfilled.
Thanks for having me, Sam. This
Thanks
was
for
really
being
great.
here. Yeah, this was awesome. All right, thanks, Brian. We hope you enjoyed this episode of What's Up at Work. Now it's time to get out there and start building better workplaces. If you need help with where to start, ERC has your back. Head to yourerc.com for exclusive HR tools, insights, and resources to help you attract and retain top talent. And keep tuning into What's Up at Work for more strategies and secrets to help leaders like you create thriving workplaces. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.